I am. Upon reviewing the discourse yesterday, I felt and I feel that continuing to go into the notion of stillness, into the activity, into the practice of stillness is very good and useful for me and for those who might find it interesting. Today, on my walk, I got on the headstone, and because of the way the weather has been this morning, there was no sun, so there was no sun dance. A few hints, perhaps, at moments, but nothing really substantial, not like yesterday. But upon stepping up on the headstone and going into a fairly simple stillness, near the end of my pose, near the end of my stillness expression, which was a position of almost conjuring out the sun, almost pulling the sun out of the clouds. At the end of this position, the sun was slowly emerging from the clouds, almost as if it was a choreographed dance that the sun was doing with me. I continued to hold my stillness because I knew the sun was moving out of the clouds and was going to shine on me at that moment. The extra time was so worthwhile. So the sun did emerge from the clouds and shone on me, shined on me, glistened on me so radiantly. For that moment, standing there on the headstone beside all the whizzing by cars. Stillness like that is very, very powerful and very, very inspirational. Again, it reiterated the stillness I did during the filming of the film about me. It was not filmed, it never made it to be filmed because of the threats of the caretaker of the church. But it still was a moment. It still was a moment for all those who were involved, and for me especially, to be in stillness and to hold stillness, and then to have the sun emerge from the clouds and to glisten on me and with such a beautiful and radiant aura. I can't think of a greater perfection. The effect on the roadside beings, on the whizzing cars, whizzing scooters, perambulators and such. It was very powerful. I always feel in my stillness just like one of their heroic characters. All around Ubud in Bali, there are these huge statues based on their mythic heroes. Arjuna is in the middle of an intersection on the way to one of the big grocery stores, and boy is he extraordinary. One of the scarier ones is at the entrance to a building and is standing there, glaring eyes and furious expression with tusks and claws. And as I have mentioned, the wondrous statue in the middle of, in the center of Ubud, who is carrying a text of some kind. I never really looked into who this being is. I can't read it. I have meant to, but I have not. But my suspicion is this was a proselytizer or a European culture bearer, one of those who was very influential in the modernization of Bali. I feel like Arjuna the most. I don't remember the name of the demon that is so beautifully represented. I don't feel like a demon. Some think of me as a demon. You probably think of me as a demon, but I am not. I'm more in the realm of deciding whether a battle is necessary or not. Gathered on the battlefield, ready to battle, but deciding whether it is right or not, whether it is moral or not. I also feel like Siddhartha, or the Buddha, who is also represented very strongly. Ganesha, Ganesha. There's the Ganesha right in front of me where I'm burning the incense presently. Ganesha is almost in every home in Bali at the doorway. I know that when Ganesha is present in my life, very strongly present, the symbol of doorways and openings and transitions, I know I'm in a transition, and I am in a transition. But stillness at that moment on the headstone, with the sun emerging from the clouds just as I was at the end of my stillness, makes the stillness so galactic. Not just occupied with the snail that is crawling across the ground, or the lizard that flits into the bushes, or the bird that is hanging above the headstone, but also one of the most important solar system beings, I'll call the sun. A radiant, powerful, energetic orb at the center of all of the planets, whirling, having such gravitational power to hold all the planets spinning around it. to there in my headstone feel the radiant warmth of the sun and fully know how powerful that moment is. Whether anybody is observing it or not, it is my holographic reality, and for me, it is full of grace and gratitude. To be there at that moment, to have arrived there at that moment, to be so much spinning around the sun and so aligned with the clouds as they move and cast open a space for the sun's light to emanate on me. It's a fantastic thing. So that is how special stillness is. I do know that many of those whizzing by were very taken by the emergence of the sun and the radiance that was cast upon me, because I was and am the hero that is just like their Arjuna. I absolutely love the headstone. It was one of those energetic spots that I saw immediately upon arriving in Ubud or in Pentestanton, wherever we are. Penestanen. It has that appearance. It's extremely protected and yet extremely open. To practice stillness on the headstone is exactly right. I recently started calling it a headstone. As you may know or understand, a headstone is also a word for a stone at the end of a grave. So in essence, what I'm doing after my stillness is dancing on the headstone, which is dancing on the grave, which is dancing on that representation of the body, which is now cast aside as the spirit or consciousness has been released in death. And stillness is a conscious a representation of death as I can exhibit in life, because if one is unconscious and I'm in seizure or I've just been knocked on the head and lying down in stillness, that is not what is happening, because there's injury there is a problem, it is not a nice place to be. However, in stillness, I am in full joy, still, fully still. I hold my stillnesses in absolute discipline, nothing moving. My heart beats, my lungs expand and hold my breath. I breathe, I blink. And those are basically my only movements. My skin twitches. In that position, in this stillness, in this awareness, in this radiance, in this joy, I am in 360-degree awareness. So, I am close, I am, let us call it mimicking, but I find that word a little bit problematic. But I'll use it right now until I can resolve onto a more perfect word. I am mimicking death in order to fully be conscious. And thus I can feel all the cars, I can feel all the eyes, I can feel all the animals, I can feel all the trees and vegetation and flowers. I can feel the clouds, I can feel the sun. I am one with all of this when I am in stillness. In that midst of feeling and 360-degree awareness and holographic reality, I am also heart beating, lungs expanding, eyes blinking, skin twitching, all unable to be controlled and all in full action. And because of that, though, everything is integrated. A word that I consider powerful, deep, and important. Integration. We shall overcome, Martin Luther King. Civil rights, integration. When we talk about civil rights and the full embrasure of this universe, this galaxy, this solar system, this sun, this planet, these animals, these human beings. And I stand in stillness as a Twoman being in full representation of my emergence as a fully evolving being. Stillness is one of the most important practices that I undertake. And I do a lot of practices. Even before doing this discourse, I go into stillness. Not as complete as the stillness on the headstone, but enough. Stillness before I am. Stillness in embrasure of my full being, so then I can fully represent this phrase. In stillness, in being, in death, is the full, simple understanding of life. From this place, I can be and I can express everything. Everything. Because once I have stated I am, then I am love. I am joyful. I am expressing. I am alive. I am fully conscious. And I do this not for money, as you do. I do this because once I really understood this, I could not do anything else but this. Money always comes because I have found my bliss, I have found my being duty, I have found my place in stillness, I have found the galaxy, the solar system, and the universe through my I am and through my stillness. There is nothing more to be done. Thus, when the violin comes up, thus when my voice comes out, it comes from a place of truth and honesty. There is nothing more that I need to do. I don't need to make your money. I don't need your approbation. I don't need your praise. I don't need anything from you. Me, I am, as you see, all that is necessary for my holographic reality. And from that holographic reality and from that realization, I recognize myself as a gift to that perspective, because my perspective is the only time and the only moment that it will ever exist. And I honor it fully. I do not waste my time with the things that you waste your time with. I am fully conscious and I act like that. I sing to you, I play to you. I don't require recompense. Recompense is honored and gratefully received, but the joy and the blessedness is that I am in stillness. I am fully conscious, 360 degrees, and the sun comes and emerges out of the clouds and is radiating on me, creating an aura that sparkles around me like a meteor. My immensely clear and conscious awareness. So I wanted to continue with that stillness just because it's so important to me. But then stillness leads to motion and expression. And what is that first move? What is that first action that one takes after stillness? How worthwhile and inspired is it? Is it a hand movement? Is it a step? Is it a turning of the head? As you may not or may be aware, you do not spend much time in stillness. You are constantly in motion, doing this and that, because you want to make some money, because you want to look at your phone. Even when you look at your phone, you're not in stillness, even though you're glued to the screen. You are actually twitching and doing all sorts of unconscious behaviors while you look at the screen, because the screen has you. You are stuck there. So you are doing all sorts of unconscious actions. If you come out of being on the screen, you're coming out of a action that has been motivated, that has been controlled, and the word is escaping me, but controlled by the screen. Therefore, your actions come and are emanating from the screen, not from stillness, not from the 360-degree awareness, or from your heart beating, or your lungs expanding, or your eyes twitching. You are in the control of the screen and that which has come out of the screen into your eyes and mind. I know you don't think that. I know you don't consider it or care, but I do. So, I think of stillness as the most perfect way to approach all important actions in life. Before I do anything, I use stillness. And if there is something that is happening or is going to happen that is full of danger and is very much a problem, I try to be as conscious as possible, and thus I go into stillness to receive the energy of that emergency, of that danger, of that problem, of that of that desperation. I try not to receive that violence, that danger, that problem, and act immediately from receiving it, because that is only acting in fear, and the energy of the moment is not part of what is happening. So if a fire explodes in front of one, the first thing one does is get afraid and run, maybe. Is that the correct behavior for that event? If one can, even for a fraction of a moment, go into stillness in confronting that danger, that emergency, one can be in 360-degree awareness and act and move in the exact perfect place, because one has received exactly what is happening around one. If one does not go into stillness and reacts from the horrific energy that is in front, the behavior could be running exactly into the fire. That doesn't make sense, does it? But that is what people do. They run into the fire, they run over a cliff, or they run into a tidal wave, or they run into a lava flow, because they do not have any conception of what's going on. Their fear, the danger itself is so immense that it overwhelms them, and it overwhelms their consciousness, and their primal behavior is to just act without any consciousness whatsoever. Whereas in stillness, the I am is fully engaged. One sees everything. One then can act in a way that is so important for that moment. It brings me to that notion of emergencies again. I spoke of practicing left and right-handed scanning, writing, etc. But you may not understand that my left-handedness and my use of left hand is using it in the exact opposite direction of right-handedness. Right hand goes from left to right. We write that way, we scan that way. So we scan all things, all signs around us are left to right. The words are left to right, so we read them left to right. I, in my left-handed practice, right to left. I scan right to left. I observe reality and the world right to left also. So I am scanning in two directions. I will say that again. I scan the world in two directions. I am a Twoman being. You, and the phones increase that, scan the world from left to right only. The keyboard is left to right. The words you see on the screen are left to right. There are no words from right to left. None. It is one of the reasons why I try not to look at phones, because it pushes people to scan from left to right. I scan from right to left also. I look at all signs and I read them right to left as well as left to right. I write from left to right as well as right to left. This is extremely extremely important to me. Let me explain and give you an analogy. We have people who are riding in a bus. The bus comes into an accident of some sort. As they're riding and they're in this accident, the people on the right side of the bus are receiving information in their windows only from one direction, because the window is moving forward. It is moving and scanning, let's say, I'm trying to remember, it's left to right. So if you're on the left side of the bus, the window is giving you information from right to left. Those people who have not practiced scanning and looking at the world from right to left, the world is completely unfathomable to them. They don't see anything. So as they come into this emergency, those people who are able to look out of the window and able to see the world going by from left to right are understanding what the emergency is. Whereas those people on the other side of the bus, and the world is coming, scanning from a right to left perspective, and are not able to see that way because they haven't practiced, are unable to see the emergency, are unable to act in a way that can help them deal with the emergency. This happens on all vehicles. One side or the other, the people are unable to see the world coming by. This is part of also driving. In Ubud, people drive, and people drive on the right side of the car. In the United States, people drive on the left side of the car. These are two different perspectives. They're difficult to understand. If you have been driving on the left side of the car, and then you come to Ubud and you are supposed to drive on the right side, and this includes the roads, you have trouble seeing. You have trouble recognizing, and you have trouble making decisions correctly. So I practice writing and scanning from right to left as well as left to right. In doing so, it allows me to see not only the joy and the specialness of the universe from both directions, but it prepares me also to be in stillness and to deal with all of the other amazing things that occur. It is this aspect to phones and computers that make me wonder about their problem to society. As I said, they are wonderful tools, but a tool, for example, a scissor can only be used by a right-handed person. Left-handed person finds difficulty using scissors because they're sharpened for a right hand, not for a left hand, not in the other direction. Therefore, the next evolutionary path of scissors is to make them both left and right-handed. Can you do that? Do you know how to do that? Is that possible? I am a scissor that cuts in both directions.